Hello and welcome to the Bowling University studio from the International Bowling Campus in Arlington, Texas. This is the Profit Break. If you're joining us for the first time, we're glad you're here. Give us 15 minutes and you'll be well on your way to improving yourself and your profitability. Well, you know, at the heart of any outstanding entertainment center visit is an exceptional food experience. And it's no small feat to make sure your center stands above the rest. But how do you do that? Well, our guest today is here to help your food service not only survive, but thrive in today's competitive environment. Many of you already know Donald Burns from his previous Profit Break appearance and his very well-attended session at Bowl Expo in Orlando last year. He was named one of the top 30 restaurant experts to follow and is a leading speaker and coach on taking restaurants from just good to outstanding. Donald is also a writer and is following up on his best-selling Your Restaurant Sucks trilogy with his newest book, Ingredients, Creating Total Restaurant Success in 90 Days. Donald, it's great to see you again. Thanks for giving us your time once more.
It's so awesome to be back here. I mean, I'm telling you, Bowl Expo was incredible last year.
It was very well received. And I tell you, for those that are listening, if you're going to plan on attending, get there early because you had a full house. It was very well done.
Yeah,
very well done.
Right.
So
don't be afraid to sit in the front row. I don't bite.
Well, I don't know about that, but okay. No, it was really great. I can't wait to see what you've got this year. So you've got a new book out, which is wonderful. I can't wait to hear more about it and read the book when it comes out. Tell us a little bit about your session where at Expo in 24, you're going to introduce the 3P framework and the total approach as a key concept. Can you give us an overview, briefly explain what that is?
Yeah, so I've been teaching what I call is the TRC method. And the TRC method goes from my struggles when I had my very first restaurant back in the 90s, how I kind of just, I hired a business coach and he introduced me to this framework called the 3P framework. And it basically is people, product, process. And when you break this thing down, and I've expanded it into the restaurant world, so I've taken this 3P framework and really built upon it some building blocks that any restaurant, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your economy is, no matter what demographic you're searching for or who you serve, I mean, this thing works for every and all restaurants because it deals with the essence of what restaurant hospitality is all about. So first thing you got to do is you got to know your people. And that means really you got to understand your team and your guests, and they are everything. So with the right team in place and a deep understanding of your guest demands, you can really, really start skyrocketing your stuff and your success and your profitability to that next level. So, and then we're going to be introducing a new thing, and actually I'm going to be rolling it out at the Bowl Expo. This is a brand new concept. It's called the Total Approach. And TOTAL is actually an acronym. It stands for teamwork, outstanding service, transparency, adaptability, and longevity. So how do we take this kind of framework and we actually expand it into our mindset and our culture that when we piggyback it with the 3P framework, it is going to basically, I mean, it's like a multiplier. It's like taking your restaurant and adding rocket fuel to it. So when you take the total framework and put it with the 3P kind of system I have, it is going to just blow up all your profits. A lot of your culture problems are going to be gone. You're going to find that people actually start searching for you and want to work with you. So it is going to be a 1-2 punch, come on, like a jab hook combo that you're going to be looking forward to. And I can't wait to share it with your members at Bowl Expo this summer.
That is awesome. You hit on all those key points that we struggle so much from day to day to get. So let me ask you this. So we know it's so competitive out there today, right? Mm-hmm. And it's crucial, as you alluded to. I mean, you want to be the one. You want to be the one that stands out. So can you share with us some common pitfalls that you see restaurants falling into, and then how this approach just might help them avoid that?
Yes, of course, because the most common thing I see with restaurant owners today is we get stuck. And the problem is when you get stuck, and I always make this joke, I had a client one time say, my restaurant's just in a rut. I said, the only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth. So let's get you out of this rut before it becomes a grave. And what the biggest thing is, they get into this thing about complacency. Complacency is the number one killer of restaurants. You get comfortable, and then you kind of get okay with good enough, and then you lose sight of aiming and shooting for excellence. Another thing we stop to think about is about our culture. Culture to me is what drives restaurants because culture flows down, doesn't flow up. Culture starts with you as the owner, as the operator. How you bring yourself to your leadership style, your energy to the team is so important because without that, the team is going to fall apart. When the team falls apart, they go to complacency and mediocrity follows. After mediocrity, usually comes a slow spiral death of your restaurant, which we don't want. So the total approach is going to help you kind of see these pitfalls, and as you see these pitfalls, and as you use that total framework, you're going to be able to adopt this mindset of continuous improvement. We're going to start looking at the teamwork, exceeding guest expectations with outstanding service, how to be totally brutally honest with yourself and with your team in transparency, and then staying ahead of industry trends or adapting. Adaptability is a huge thing. And then finally, building that business that lasts, that longevity. It's going to not only set you up for success now, but it's going to carry you forward into the future for massive success and profitability.
That sounds exciting. That's awesome. I can't wait to see it. So let me ask you this. So there's a process there, and you've always emphasized, not just surviving, but thriving. Okay. So how do you get started? How do you get started with this process?
Well, the most important thing is that you got to start with that 3P framework. Now, this 3P framework is people, product, process. And I liken it to like a combination lock. If I gave you a combination lock and I said, open the lock, you would probably say, oh, well, what's the combination? I said, okay, if I give you the combination, I say the combination is 1, 2, 3, but you grab the lock and put it in 3, 2, 1, that lock won't open because you don't have the combination in the right order. The 3P framework works when it's put in the right order. It's people, product, process. People feeds process, process feeds people. So when you look at the 3P, it's like people, product, process. Product's in the middle. People feeds process, process feeds people. What do I mean by that? Every month someone will call me and say, Donald, I'm frustrated. And I'll say, why are you frustrated? They'll say, well, my team's not following the checklist. And I'll say, what's wrong with the checklist? And they'll say, well, nothing. You gave me the checklist. I'll say, all right, well, if the checklist is good, look at the 3P framework. It's the people part. You haven't really inundated the culture. They haven't bought into why it's important. They haven't been trained properly. They don't know why. You just gave them a task to do instead of giving them a mission. That's why the checklist doesn't work. Also, I'll get every once in a while, someone will come and say, I'm frustrated. I say, why are you frustrated? I say, well, I went home this afternoon to go walk the dog. I come back to the restaurant. Everyone's standing around. They're on their phones. They're on social media. They're chatting with their friends. They're not cleaning. They're not doing anything. I'll say, well, do you have processes in place? Do you have running side work? Do you have time checklists? 11 o'clock do this, 12 o'clock do this, 1 o'clock do this. No. But they should know what to do. They don't know what to do. You need to tell them what to do. That's why the 3P framework is so critical, because when you follow the framework, the lock will open every single time.
I just love the analogies you use, because it gives you a visual, and it's like, yeah, okay, I can see that. So I just love the way you do that. It makes it easy to understand, because ultimately, I guess it's not that complicated if you have a good roadmap, right, on how to do it.
It is. And that's the beautiful thing about this 3P framework and the T.O.T.A.L framework. I'm going to give you guys 2 solid frameworks at the Bowl Expo that is going to actually, if you use these frameworks and apply them and adopt them religiously, they will guaranteed change the trajectory of your restaurant. And also you'll start seeing that profitability start slowly climbing. It's not an immediate thing, because just like anything else, when you start making changes, it takes a while to get some momentum going. But once you break free, it's like a rocket leaving the atmosphere. As soon as launching is really hard. It takes a lot of fuel to get that rocket off the launch pad. But once it gets out into the atmosphere, it orbits effortlessly around the world. So that's what we want to get to.
Awesome. Well, you've been doing in this industry, if I remember correctly, like over 4 decades, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
Right. 40, so you've been doing this a long time. So what along the way has led you to develop this? I mean, did you just have an epiphany one day, or?
Well, I mean, I started off apprenticed with my father at 15, washing dishes, moving up the line in the kitchen. Became a young chef in my early 20s, worked at a lot of places, worked with some famous chefs. And of course, what's the natural dream of all young chefs? Open my own restaurant. I can do this. I've worked in restaurants for 15 years when I was 30. This should be easy. It was not easy. I opened a restaurant with a lot of assumptions that just because I knew how to run a restaurant, I did not know how to build a profitable brand. And I was struggling. It wasn't until I got a business coach who actually introduced me to this stuff. I mean, I was in over my head. You want to talk about that rut? I was in the grave. I mean, I had one foot in the grave and I was just like pulling the dirt over myself every day by doing the same thing, expecting different results, which, by the way, is called insanity. You don't want to do that. Yeah. So many times we get stuck doing the same things and we think that if I just work harder and harder in my business, I can break free. Sometimes it's not about working hard. There's some problems you just can't outwork. So out of my own frustrations, I got introduced to this model, the 3P framework, and I just took it and said, wow, this thing is really solid gold. And if I take it and expand on it and apply it to my restaurant, it became a holistic approach to not only how to run a restaurant, how to build a profitable brand.
All right, I see. That's great. That's a lot to grasp over those 4 decades of stuff that you put it all together. Hopefully, you'll save a lot of us from that same kind of pain. So, you know what? Let's talk about the guests for a minute. It's probably a safe assumption that over time, guests' demands, expectations change a little bit. So, how can this system help restaurant owners, proprietors change with those expectations without giving up who they are at their core?
Yeah, the total approach is all about flexibility and responsiveness. It goes in, remember the A part is adaptability. So it's rooted in that strong sense of identity. You have to really know who you are, what your brand stands for. And after you have that, and that's why we use the 3P framework to understand that branding component in our culture piece. Once we knew that, we can actually adapt and move forward and change without really losing who we are as a restaurant or as a brand. For example, like outstanding service means not just meeting, but anticipating guest needs, which we need to do. That requires a deeper kind of understanding of your guests, understanding the psychographics, not just demographics. And adaptability means being really willing to change based on feedback and trends which are happening, which should always be put through the lens of your core identity or core values.
Okay. And I would think too, let's take that a step further too. As part of the coaching that you've done over the years, I'm sure that involved a lot of strategies, okay, that are actionable. So after you're done, okay, here's what I do next, my actionable strategy. Can you share, give us an example maybe of some strategy that you might bring up during the session?
Yeah, one strategy I like to talk to with my clients is a lot about like guest feedback. So a guest feedback loop is really, really critical because it really influences operations. Now, I worked with a restaurant that started really like soliciting in real time guest feedback using digital apps. And they started directly engaging with their guests through an SMS, through text messaging. And I tell you, the immediate feedback they got allowed them to make adjustments on the fly, day to day, which radically improved the guest experience, which also radically improved the kind of feedback and the guest reviews they were getting. That actually led to more people hearing about their positive experience, more people coming into the restaurant, and that just kind of feeds the cycle. So it all starts with getting feedback, not being it's so bad where you're like, they don't know what they're talking about, but being open-minded about, there might be something here that I could actually take and learn from, and taking that feedback, taking the thread out of it, what's actually really going on, and asking yourself honest questions like, all right, this is kind of my fault, And so when you have that openness about yourself and not have this ego writing these checks that, we don't make no mistakes, we're infallible, we're the best there is. But when you have this kind of process that you're willing to be transparent and willing to be open and adapt quickly, that's going to significantly increase not only guest satisfaction, but repeat business. And that's the name of the game nowadays, is now we got to get people to come back more often.
Right. Well, and you know what? I mean, I think that's the goal of most all the proprietors that are, give me something that I can take back. What do I do? So that's great. We got time for one more. We talked about guests changing, expectations throughout in coming days in the future. There's other changes that are going to be made, obviously, that are challenges that restaurants and proprietors are going to face, be they economic or technological. How will your session help them identify maybe and navigate those future challenges?
Well, the 3P framework and this total principle, the 3P framework has been around. I've been doing this since the 90s when I had my first restaurants. And the thing about the 3P framework and now adding the total kind of model on top of it is the sense that both of these approaches are very timeless because they focus on the core aspects of hospitality, which is understanding and delivering value to the people, not only your guests, but also to your team. I mean, technologies change, new markets, things come out, trends come out, new hot things come out. I mean, remember when sriracha was the hot thing? Now it's like everyone has sriracha, something on their menu. But we still need, at our basis, a foundation of culture. We need a solid team. We need a compelling product. We need efficient processes. And we need to be able to measure, manage, and track those certain KPIs to stay on top of the stuff. Those principles are timeless, and they equip any restaurant owner with the mindset and the tools to be able to adapt to changes, anticipate guest needs, and really create an experience that is memorable. Because when you think about what we really sell, we don't just sell food and drink, we actually sell memories, is what we're selling. So by focusing on continuous improvement and really staying true to your culture, your core values, restaurants not only will survive, but they'll actually thrive because so many people lose their identity about who they are and what they stand for. And that will overcome any challenges of what any kind of economic disasters or any kind of economic bubbles come our way.
Donald, that is just awesome information. Count me in. I will make sure I'm at your session. Even if I don't get the privilege of working it, I'm going to be in there. So thank you for that. I can't wait to see it. So if you're ready to take your food service from just good to outstanding, you don't want to miss Donald's session at Bowl Expo in Denver on Wednesday, July 3rd. If you're ready to start improving your center's profitability, you can reach us anytime at education@bpa.com. As we wrap up another edition of the Profit Break, remember that when your focus is on growing people, people will grow your business. This episode, as well as all previous Profit Break episodes, are available 24/7 for you and your team at bowlinguniversity.net. Plus, new episodes are available every month, so mark your calendar, watch your email, and join us on Facebook to hear about the latest episode. Until then, I'm John Karabatsos, and do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. We'll see you next time.